Hey Jay,
Kevin.
how's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty well. All all humans in my household are currently functioning normally, so green lights across the board.
That's good. Automated systems are working fine.
Yep, exactly. Everybody is still breathing on their own.
Yeah.
No assistance required. How about you?
Amazing. Good. Sorry. I'm prepping for um an event on Saturday. I'm going with Jake. Have you met Jake Wiley? Do you know
Yeah,
him?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a FOIA event that's happening in New York, and then he's going to be talking about web monitoring, and I'll be talking about Edgy and our interviewing project. So
Okay.
getting the word out there. It's the audience is mostly like lawyers and journalists. It's at a law school,
hmm
CUNY, like City University in New York,
hmm
the School of
I've
Law.
heard of it.
Yeah. Um, and then it's put on by one of our other Edgy members. Her name's Sarah. So just a little bit nervous because like I've never talked to a group that big. She said about 70 people RSVP'd already. Um, but I don't know. But Jake will be next to me, and I've been practicing, and I have all the slides and stuff all done, and all my notes and stuff is all prepped. It's just practicing a lot until
Yeah,
then. Yeah. Do you have
man.
experience talking to big groups?
Yeah, yeah, and so because I spent a lot of time in academia. One of the things I would do is do like the undergraduate. Hey, the library is a thing that you should know how to use. So yeah, I've had the pleasure of speaking to like I don't know, maybe 200 people at a time is probably the
Oh,
biggest, but
nice.
definitely the first time that you speak in front of more than like a dozen people, it's a different so just don't be afraid if you get tongue tied or flustered to just stop and take a breath. Like,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I'd be like, Jake, lifeline. Just take
you don't even have to phone a friend. You can just tap
Yeah,
one.
he's right there. Yeah. And yeah, everybody's really been really encouraging, and I thought it made more sense just to be really honest about it instead of like pretending that like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like kill this, but hey Dan. Oh yeah, I should ask Dan because Dan always talks in front of big crowds. Because
What's up?
I have the event on Saturday. I'm not sure if you're aware. There's a FOIA event on
Oh, cool.
Saturday. It's like a big day-long conference, and then Jake and I will be talking at it. Yeah, talking at it. He'll be talking about web monitoring, and I'll be talking about Edgy and stuff. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah, it's about 70 people that are expected at the conference. Good evening.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you done that before?
No, that's what I was telling Jay. I never talked to a group that big. I performed like I did modern dance, and so I performed in front of a big group,
Nice.
but like not talked, like had a presentation in front of a big group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. You did dance. I did ballet when I was in college.
Oh,
We should
cool.
talk about dance again.
Yeah, I wasn't. No, I was just. The show was like a student showcase, so it was like total like amateur hour kind
Oh,
of.
me. I mean, me too. Me too. Definitely. I was just lifting girls around. Like now, okay. Uh, yeah, that's fun though. Yeah, I don't know. Like if you can get into the space early, that always makes me feel better to like know the space. Obviously, know your audience is the only and best advice. And then I've always had good luck with the like maybe write down almost word for word what I'm gonna say if I really haven't talked about it before,
Yeah,
and then condense that down aggressively to grab those like transition hooks and the
yeah,
specific things that are hard to phrase correctly on the first try,
yeah,
or maybe just skip to that second step if I know the topic well enough. But I
yeah,
almost always write down and maybe have with me key phrases like that because that makes it go way better.
yeah. Oh no, that's great because I did that process. I wrote it all out first, and
Yeah,
then I turned it into like bullet points after that, and then now
yeah,
I have to write it so I have something in front, just in case I have something in front of me,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
practice a lot. Yeah, a lot of it is
I
just
think
like
it's
my
really effective.
story, how I came to Edgies, which and I've told people things this before,
Yeah,
but then the only nervous part that I have is like talking about interviewing. That's supposed to like because the audience is journalists and lawyers, so we
yeah.
thought web monitoring and interviewing would be the best like things to talk, the topics to bring up. So I'm a little bit about interviewing, but I'm mostly going to be reading quotes. So we'll see. I'm so excited. Yeah, get to see Jake in person and And Ray said he'll like find time to hang out while I'm out there. I'll be in Brooklyn. I'll actually be there for a week, just to hang out there. Go to Brendan's WeWork, hang out with him. Try to
Cool. That's exciting.
yeah. So looking forward to it.
Well, I think this is who we're expecting. Maybe Sans Gretchen. I don't know
Yeah.
what her.
Yeah.
We can get started.
Let's see here.
And Rob said he probably won't make it.
Yeah. I'll pull up the agenda here. Okay. And add something to it. Okay. Well, I'll just. Why don't we start with Dan?
Sure. Sorry, just getting a stretch and a sip of coffee. I just came off a 2-hour meeting with work. I'm like, kill me now. Okay.
I literally just was waiting for you to go out of frame to say that we should start with you. So.
Oh man, right. Since it's going to be a short meeting, I suspect you know that feeling when you go to the gym and then 2 days later you can't walk. It's always 2 days later.
Yeah.
And that's my situation right now. I can't be sitting still for this long. So no updates for me. I was co-organizing a conference in New York last week at work. I did basically nothing other than show up on Slack and try to be helpful. I made the list in the document about what I want to work on next. Hopefully I'll get to some of it in the next week. That's it.
And I see a phone call. That must be Gretchen, ? Looks like it's muted. But we'll give that a moment to resolve itself. I'll go ahead and do my dev update.
Yeah.
So obviously, Kubernetes deployment now public. I sort of took the, like, we're just going to lop off the things that are problematic at all and not have them in version control approach, so that we could just move forward with that. That's had some good feedback from Rob in Slack. So I think there's some conversation worth having there. Some of this stuff are things that we had previously discussed kind of in meeting and in the private repo. I think ultimately that using Helm could help us out with some of this. Like I've seen people using Helm to help manage secrets also. Or there's some other approaches we can use to have some kind of system for keeping our secrets instead of just having them be unversioned files in a file share, basically. That was kind of Rob's concern of like, man, we actually have a pretty large portion of what it takes to make this thing work from us, not really managed now. So I definitely think that warrants follow-up. But we at least have a public place now where we can have discussions. That was probably the single biggest thing for me, is that like it would be nice if our conversations about how this work and needs to work could be more open. So I'm glad we have that now. Thank you, Kevin, for taking notes, by the way. I'm so bad at asking for somebody to do that up front. We moved from base64 encoded secrets to mostly string secrets. So that feels like a big win. Let's see here.
The little victories we celebrate around here.
yeah, it's a little win, but man,
it drove me nuts too.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh yeah, I finally finished up my input on the incident reports from the stuff that's like a month old now. And that way that we're managing secrets is part of that. Last night or yesterday, we had a SSL blow up. Basically, the wrong cert got applied in staging and production, and that was me. Let's see. Did I actually put a link to that?
Had I edited that in place then? Is that what happened when we did our production push? I probably must have edited it in place.
No, what happened was, I see. Yeah, let me link to the PR. No, so we had that issue with the
I remember.
SSL cert.
Yeah.
And it was me. So I went into the AWS console and manually set the correct cert, because effectively at that point we had an outage, and then I never went back and updated the services config.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
And through all this stuff, we never actually redeployed any of the services, because why would you? Until I went to go test to make sure, because I was rejiggering the services files in a way that was supposed to not make any changes, and I tested that by applying it, by deploying it. I'm going to drop a link in to that PR with the report, because basically it was all of the here we go. That's the real link there. All of the things that I could have done wrong, I did wrong to result in this. I had added an exception for the wrong cert on our first deploy day, so that I could just see the data see that things were getting output. But I left the make it permanent box ticked.
Got it.
So I did this deploy, and I just spot checked the endpoints, and they looked fine. Because I had done a security exception for the wrong certificate. So that was like clearly not a good enough test. But all it took was going back and fixing it up. I initially fixed it up by hand, then I put the correct cert in to the services config file, and I redeployed, using kube control, and verified that, hey, we still have the right certs now. So that was not pretty. Okay, so that's all the stuff that I've done since last week. Basically, I need to turn back to my local dev environment, which I set down a couple of weeks ago. Basically, I was really happy with Minikube, the pieces that I got everything but API up and running there, just because that has more stuff you got to configure.
Right.
But what I like about that is it makes it really easy to go. Like you can just, I just set it up so that I have Git submodules for the projects, and it's really easy to go from source tree to deploying an image to a local Kubernetes cluster. So for me, that makes a lot of sense to be able to have different development versions of the different pieces be able to talk to each other locally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got. On the dev side, we are continuing to move forward with the sysadmin hiring. That's less of a devs thing. I guess that could be a good thing to put in the organizer updates, because I'm the organizer. What's this? Admin hiring continues. Okay, that's all I have.
I don't have any updates. Caller on the phone. Is that you, Gretchen?
Must be a spot.
The phone caller is definitely showing as muted. So if you are a person trying to speak on the phone, we are unaware of your words.
While we wait, comments on what you were saying, Jason. The Minikube thing is exciting. I will definitely use that. A big barrier for me as someone who's often trying to grab 10 minutes of time to do something, or just to do a better review on a PR. I'm often struggling with like local Postgres stupidity or something dumb, and it's embarrassing, but it does slow you down. So that's great. I feel like I agree with Rob that I want the services to be in the repo, but sort of for the opposite reason, which is funny. But I guess before getting into the philosophical part of that, was the only reason to remove the services that we were concerned about the ARNs for the certs?
That's the only part that was really sensitive at all, just because it has our account number, because it has our AWS numeric account ID in there.
Is that, how sensitive is that? So I raised that originally way back in the day, saying I'm a little concerned about this. And I thought the consensus that I got back from almost everyone we talked to was this is not an issue.
Well, it's not too big of a concern if you have some OPSEC, operational security stuff in place, but we really don't.
So what if we had MFA in there?
Well, so what I've done at other places is a couple of different things to sort of secure your account level stuff. One is you basically only use IAM accounts for things. You don't have any API keys provisioned for your root account.
Right.
And and you basically set that credential to be something ridiculously complex and long, and then you
Right.
put it in a vault and nobody touches it.
Right.
That's like and that's like a thing that like 2 people are authorized to even get to the password for.
Right.
And then you set a policy to force MFA for all your IAM users. You set a password rotation policy, and also you expire out API credentials.
So I think the only people that need to get into AWS for all of Edgy are the people who are always on this call. So
Right.
if we all got the LastPass authenticator.
Yeah, I think we could clean that up pretty, like that's not an unreasonable thing to do. And then the other stuff, like we're really just, like for instance, putting RDS in this thing was just like, well, we already have this file that's got our local config in it. So like, why not just put the local to us config things all in the same file that's not version controlled? But our Postgres endpoint is not necessarily sensitive. There's more we could do to make sure that that's secured.
Is that an external?
Well, we
have to set up a VPC to do that, right? Wouldn't we?
Well, we set some stuff to be. We wouldn't actually.
No?
We set some stuff to be open to do the migration, and I don't know if we ever really closed it back up. So that's worth closing a loop on. But that's does not have to be. If we've appropriately secured it, it's not sensitive.
Okay. So I think I intentionally kept my eyes half shut with regard to these issues. I mean, not that I haven't thought through them before, but I decided we don't need to hash these out now because it's important to move the issue tracker open, right? It's important to have the discussion open. So I'm glad that we did that. And I think that your approach of saying, although it's kind of insane to have your AWS account number be secure through obscurity, like why leak it if we don't have to? I think that's all reasonable. So now if we all agree that we can make services public, I think that we should. It seems like something that really needs to be version controlled to me.
Yeah, I think pending implementing some just basic OPSEC stuff on our account, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like Rob's take is hard for me to parse, and I'm looking at it again here. Obviously, he posted this recently.
Yeah, and let me. So whenever he's talking about encryption and tooling, I think he's talking about the idea of
Git crypt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or again, if we were storing those annotations somewhere else, which we can't do with a Kubernetes secret, but we might be able to handle that with Helm charts or something.
Yeah.
Sure. Which is a thing that we've talked about.
I think Helm is probably a way off. But a good idea.
Yeah.
How about this? How about we take our. So I think Rob's whole issue is that. I mean, there's a couple issues here, but I think the main issue is that things that are critical to making our deployment work are now outside version control, and we have no go to put them in version control. Yep. So what if we used a private Git repo that Keybase now supports and put the secrets in a separate Git repo?
Yeah, I think if we just reorganized, stuck them all into a subdirectory that could be a Git submodule.
Yeah.
Then we could use a Keybase private repo because we are all already on Keybase. And we could just stick services and secrets. We could just basically have a private directory at the same level as the templates directory and put our service config and our secrets in there with the idea that
is reasonable.
With the idea that after we do a little bit of account security pass in AWS, that we might just move the services back out to public.
Right. Now you can still keep the secrets in version control in Keybase, but you do have this problem, I think, no matter how you do it, is if you have 2 repos, you have a coordinated config issue. That would be the case using Git crypt on a public repo, which the Jupyter guys do, but I understand why Rob would be nervous about that.
I share his skittishness about that too. I've never published Git crypted files.
Yeah.
And that may just mean that I need to go read up a little bit more and learn about the ultimate imperviousness of that. The other thing is too, if we there are controls you can put in place to ensure that that's not necessarily a problem, because things like that are all breakable but on a timeline. So again, if your secrets are changing with based on some kind of policy that is implemented, even publishing your secrets knowing that they could be cracked 5 years down the road is not a problem if you keep rotating them in less than sub 5 year increments. Like, that's just an example, but
Right. I think maybe I'm not gonna push for Git crypt and public, because I agree that could be sort of scary. But I think we have a coordinated configuration issue.
Yeah.
Now you need to know which version of each you've deployed, and I think that moving the services out is going to make that situation worse, because I think that coordinated changes with the secrets and everything else are going to be rarer than coordinated changes between services and deployments.
Oh, do you think so? I mean, the only thing I can see causing us to change is like either doing a certificate renewal, which we'll have one coming up. We actually need to figure out how we're going to get the appropriate certs renewed for next year, or if we do like a database migration or something.
Right.
But I do see it as so I actually don't see it as a huge problem. Like, I don't think those are files that are going to change very often.
Yeah, fair enough.
In terms of frequency, but it's definitely a workflow problem and like a data security problem, because if one of us accidentally deletes that,
yeah,
like, you can't see, like, there's no previous versions like as part of the file store. I can't see who made which change. You have the basic metadata about when it was last edited, and that's about it. So that definitely feels a little scary for like, this is the thing we have to have.
Well, the encrypted Git repo will help.
Yep, that would solve most of that.
Maybe we just try to do that as our first action item and then go from there. Was there something else? No, I guess that was it. It was in terms of my response to your.
What was that action item, Dan?
To move the secrets files from an ordinary directory in Keybase to an encrypted Git repository in Keybase, so we can have copies on all of our laptops that are secure but distributed like Git. So if somebody deletes it from the Keybase, that we don't lose it.
The only question is that might warrant just a little bit of. We should reach out back to Rob. And just see if that addresses. Maybe we could move this discussion actually into Git. We could write this up as an issue on the public repo.
Another. This is what I want to say. Another path. Like, there's so many paths to opening this up, is to drop ARNs and use Let's Encrypt. Right. That would also fill the issue.
Yeah, and the way people seem to be doing. That's a thing I researched while I was playing with all of this stuff, and. The way people seem to usually handle that is by basically doing that two ways. Either sort of writing their own Nginx ingress and having Let's Encrypt live there, or by terminating directly in the pods. Which I feel like probably we're just going to have our load balancers point to our own ingress is probably the most reasonable thing for us.
The first one, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. Certbot might even be able to help you do that now. It's getting really smart. I don't know if you've used it recently.
I have not. The most recent thing I did with, I have a server out there in the cloud taking care of its own certs, was using something from Bitnami.
I see. I haven't used them. I used it yesterday for the first time in a while, and I was in the situation was I was doing this website for a company that did the sort of scam certificates where you pay them way too much money. And so they still had those. You need to move to the new one. Certbot merged the certificates successfully. So the old ones were there with the new ones, edited my Nginx config correctly, did the validation check, cleaned up those endpoints in Nginx, and everything worked flawlessly in like
Nice.
it was,
Nice.
it was so I was impressed, right? It didn't used to be that smooth.
No. Like I universally ended up basically telling it not to touch my web server and just to tell me where the stuff was, so that my wrapper script could go and move all the pieces around, because the automated stuff was not good.
That's how I used to do it, but I don't know. I felt lucky,
nice.
so I gave it a try.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think our real action item on the services part, because I think it's clear that nobody feels like we've quite hit the right solution.
Yeah.
And there's just maybe a degree difference in how wrong we feel like what we have is currently. Right. So maybe an action item can be for me to basically take some of these notes and plunge this discussion onto GitHub, into Web Monitoring Kube as an issue. Maybe Dan, if either you could give me read access back to the private repo, or if you could do this, move the outstanding issues, copy them over to the public repo from the private repo.
I'm happy to do that.
Because that'll help. And then I really feel like we've come we're still, it's the end of October and we're still talking about deployment stuff, but I'm gaining confidence that we can make changes to our infrastructure and have things not explode afterwards. My confidence in that is rising. So
yeah, me too.
That sounds good.
Let's see here. Okay, Azure pipelines. Who was this discussion?
Oh, this was me. So this comes from, I hung out with Steve Dower, who's like one of the top contributors to CPython and also happens to work at Microsoft last week. And he was pitching me and Tom Caswell, who runs Matplotlib, on Azure pipelines, as it looks like Microsoft is really making a play for this space, and they know that if you're going to switch your config over, they have to give you something very pretty. So you get 10 free parallel builds and a pipeline system that looks like it could avoid some of the stuff that's become painful about Circle. So I just wanted to float it as like a thing that we could do. I don't really think we should do it anytime soon, but I know that Circle has had some pain points around the deploy stuff, and I know that Rob hates Circle 2.0. I use Travis for almost everything that I do, so I don't really know. Yeah. But.
Yeah, there was an article, I think, on Ars Technica that was talking about Microsoft's new offerings that sounds interesting, but change is also painful and costly.
Right. Yeah. So were there any issues in particular you wanted back? All I really see that's relevant here is network policy, which I just did. Avoid hard coding the config data, which is just a question about these ARNs. So I'll make a new issue reflecting our current thinking there. And he's just wondering if we should make a Helm chart. I guess I'll move that over, but that's just like, yes, eventually. And then the other issue was make it public. So.
Okay, good. Well, I literally couldn't. I remembered that there were a couple of discussion
go check. Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay. Just looking through our discussion items.
It's mostly the notes. The only other discussion item was me and Jake going to New York. I was just letting people know. Yeah, and Jay, you were saying something about like you talk in front of 200 people. Was there just like some tidbit of advice you want to give me before the call's over?
Well, Dan's advice, I don't know why I didn't think of this before, of trying to spend some time occupying the space in advance. It was actually fantastic. And I mean, so that's one thing. And then, like I said earlier, if you get tangled up, just stop and take a breath. Yeah, in my experience, at least, if I try to barrel through when I'm flustered, then I just go a long way in no direction at all. Um, uh,
I
the other
understand.
thing, if you have a friend that can do a capture of you like on their phone or something,
Mhm,
practicing part of it,
mhm.
especially if it's in that space, if you can do that in advance,
Oh wow.
that can really help you see your fidgets that you do
Mhm.
unconsciously. Like if you want to check and see if you've got any things that you do that are distracting to your audience.
Yeah, yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. Cool. Good advice. Yeah, I'm actually because the organizer is an Edgy member, and so I've been in contact with her. So I'm gonna be there on Friday. I'm flying in Thursday night, and then Friday night I'm gonna meet up with her at the college just to like prep, and then
Great.
Saturday is the event. So yeah, awesome. All the things that you're telling me to do, I'm planning to do. That's great. But yeah, breathe, and yeah, take some time out. Awesome. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, we're just right at time. Does anybody have any other things they want to bring up before we split?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, this was a productive meeting, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good week.
Awesome.
Yeah, really good to see you both. See you next week.
See you, Dan. Jay.
Oh, and have fun, Kevin, by the way. Enjoy. And good luck.
Awesome. Cool.
See
Thank
ya.
you.